The world is divided into two categories: those who question everything and those who accept everything. You have felt this your entire life. You walk into a room and sense that invisible hierarchy. Certain people command attention without effort. They receive opportunities, respect, and influence. Meanwhile, you work harder, try to be kinder, strive to be more competent, yet you remain unseen, unheard, undervalued. You wonder why your talent is not enough, why your good intentions are not rewarded. Here is the uncomfortable truth that polite society rarely admits. Power does not respond to effort or goodness alone. Power responds to the quality of your questions and the depth of your self-knowledge. Socrates' mind is not about manipulation. It is about relentless self-examination and the disciplined art of asking questions that reveal truth, first to yourself, then to others. Over 2,400 years ago, Socrates did not write a manual for tyrants. He lived a method for waking the mind. He understood that most people live in unexamined assumptions, sleepwalking through life, controlled by unexamined desires, fears, and opinions. If you accept those assumptions without scrutiny, you will always remain a piece on someone else's board. If you master the Socratic art of questioning, you become the one who moves the pieces because you see clearly where others are blind. Most people approach power seeking validation. They want to be liked, approved of, included. That is the first illusion. Powerful people do not need more admirers. They need clarity, insight, and people who can see reality without distortion. The moment you stop asking for permission to exist and begin asking dangerous, honest questions of yourself and of the world, everything changes. Socrates' Mind Law 1. Know thyself, the foundation of all leverage. Before you can influence anyone, you must first know who you truly are, not who you pretend to be, not who you wish you were, but who you actually are when no one is watching. Socrates' most famous command was know thyself. He did not say it to be inspirational. He said it because ignorance of self is the root of every failure in life. You cannot negotiate from strength if you do not know your real strengths, your real weaknesses, your real desires, and your real fears. Most people live in a carefully constructed story about themselves. They tell themselves they are kind, hardworking, ethical, while avoiding the mirror of honest reflection. The first step to power is brutal self-honesty. Write down your fears. Write down what you really want, not what sounds noble. Write down the excuses you make every day. When you know yourself, you become unbreakable. No one can shame you with a truth you have already faced. No flattery can sway you because you already know your worth. Self-knowledge is the ultimate armor. Socrates' Mind Law 2. Question everything, especially what feels comfortable. The greatest chains are the ones we do not see. Society trains us to accept certain truths without examination. Hard work is always rewarded. Be nice and people will like you. If you're good, good things will happen. Socrates rejected comfort. He questioned everything, even, especially, the things everyone agreed upon. The moment you stop accepting assumptions is the moment you become dangerous to mediocrity. Ask yourself, why do I believe this? Who benefits if I believe this? What would happen if the opposite were true? Question your own motives. Question the motives of those above you. Question the stories powerful people tell about themselves and about the world. When you question relentlessly, you develop intellectual sovereignty. You no longer need approval because you trust your own reasoning. That is magnetic to power. Powerful people are surrounded by yes men who echo their assumptions. When you arrive and quietly ask the uncomfortable question no one else dares to ask, you become unforgettable. Socrates' Mind Law 3. The Midwife Method. Help others give birth to their own ideas. Socrates never lectured. He asked questions. He called himself a midwife. His role was not to give birth to ideas, but to help others give birth to their own. Most people try to impress by telling. That creates resistance. When you tell someone what to think, their ego defends itself. When you ask the right question, their ego cooperates because they believe the conclusion is their own. This is psychological jujitsu. Instead of arguing, ask, what would happen if? How do you explain? What evidence would change your mind about? Let them walk themselves into the truth. When they arrive there, they own it, and they associate that ownership with you. You become the catalyst, the guide, the one who unlocked their clarity. That is far more powerful than being right. Socrates' Mind Law 4, the examined life. Reject the unexamined opinion. Socrates said, the unexamined life is not worth living. Most people live unexamined lives. They inherit opinions from family, media, social circles, and never test them. They defend beliefs they never chose. To enter the circles of power, you must live an examined life. Test every opinion. Ask, is this true? How do I know? What would falsify it? When you do this consistently, you develop intellectual clarity, a rare and intoxicating quality. Powerful people are bored by predictable opinions. They are fascinated by people who think for themselves, who are willing to change their mind when evidence demands it. That willingness signals strength, not weakness. It signals independence of thought, the rarest form of power. These first 4 laws are the foundation. Master them, and you stop being invisible. You stop seeking validation. You become a force of intellectual honesty in a world drowning in comfortable illusions. Once you have built the foundation of self-knowledge and relentless questioning, the next level is mastering perception, both your own and that of others. Socrates' mind teaches that power is not about what you are. It is about what you are perceived to be. Perception can be shaped through disciplined inquiry, strategic silence, and the art of asking questions that reveal more than they ask. Socrates' Mind Law 5, the power of not knowing. Weaponize humility. The smartest person in the room is rarely the one talking the most. Socrates famously said, I know that I know nothing. This was not false modesty. It was strategic superiority. By admitting ignorance, he disarmed egos and invited others to reveal themselves. When you enter a room full of powerful people, do not rush to prove how much you know. Ask questions that show curiosity instead of certainty. Help me understand. What am I missing here? How did you arrive at that conclusion? Powerful people love to teach. When you position yourself as the student, their ego opens. They lower their guard. They begin to share real information. Humility is not weakness. It is camouflage. While they are busy feeling superior, you are quietly gathering intelligence. Socrates' Mind Law 6, the art of the Socratic probe. Expose contradictions without accusation. Never argue head-on. Socrates never said, you are wrong. He asked questions that led people to discover their own contradictions. This is devastatingly effective. When someone holds an inconsistent belief, do not attack it. Ask gentle, curious questions. If X is true, how do you explain Y? What would happen if the opposite were the case? Let them wrestle with their own logic. Most people will either change their mind or double down. And when they double down, their position weakens because they now know is fragile. The probe is invisible violence. You do not strike. You simply hold up the mirror until the other person cannot stand their own reflection. Socrates' Mind Law 7. Strategic silence. Let others fill the void. Silence is the most powerful question of all. After someone finishes speaking, do not rush to respond. Pause. Let the silence grow uncomfortable. Human beings hate vacuum. In that discomfort, they will reveal more than they intended. They will justify, elaborate, contradict themselves, or offer concessions just to break the tension. Most people fear silence because they think it signals weakness. In reality, it signals dominance. The person who can sit in silence without anxiety holds the frame. Powerful people respect those who are not desperate to fill every gap. Use silence like a scalpel. Cut through noise and force clarity. Socrates' Mind Law 8. The dialectic of opposites. Force clarity through tension. Socrates loved to push ideas to their extremes to test their strength. Present the opposing view, not to win an argument, but to sharpen understanding. On one hand, you say X, but on the other hand, doesn't Y contradict that? By creating tension between opposites, you force deeper thinking. Most people hold shallow opinions because they have never been forced to reconcile contradictions. When you introduce tension without hostility, you become the intellectual catalyst. People remember the person who made them think harder, not the person who agreed with them. Socrates Mind Law 9. The midwife's patience. Wait for truth to be born. Never rush the process. Socrates knew that truth cannot be forced. It must be allowed to emerge. Ask your question, then wait. Let the other person struggle. Let them sit with uncertainty. The moment they give birth to their own insight is the moment they own it, and they will credit you, consciously or unconsciously, for guiding them there. Patience is power. Impatience signals neediness. The one who waits controls the tempo. These laws shift you from participant to orchestrator. You no longer chase power. You create the conditions in which power seeks you. The final 4 laws elevate you from mere influence to true sovereignty. At this level, the dynamic reverses completely. You no longer need the room begins to need you. The power shifts from seeking connection to becoming the gravitational center that others orbit. Socrates' mind reaches its culmination here, not through domination or cunning, but through radical self-ownership, fearless inquiry, and an unshakable commitment to truth that makes conformity impossible and mediocrity unbearable. Socrates Mind Law 10. The sovereign questioner, detached from outcome. True power begins the moment you release your attachment to any particular outcome. Socrates questioned relentlessly even when it cost him everything: his freedom, his safety, ultimately his life. He did not need to win the argument, convince the jury, or gain approval from the crowd in Athens. His sole commitment was to the pursuit of truth, wherever it led. This detachment is not indifference, it is liberation. When you stop needing the deal to close, the connection to form, the approval to be granted, or the recognition to arrive, your questions become fearless. You ask what must be asked, not what is safe, comfortable, or socially acceptable. That fearlessness is magnetic. Powerful people are surrounded by supplicants who need something from them: validation, opportunity, favor, status. They can smell neediness from miles away, and it repels them because it signals weakness. But when you approach with radical detachment, willing to walk away without bitterness, willing to hear no without crumbling, you become unpredictable, intriguing, and respected. Detachment is freedom. It allows you to say what others cannot, to challenge assumptions others accept, to pursue clarity where others settle for comfort. The ability to walk away without hesitation is the ultimate leverage, because the moment you're truly willing to leave, the other side loses their greatest weapon over you: your dependence. Practice this daily. Before any important conversation, silently affirm, I do not need this outcome. I need only to speak truth as I see it. Watch how your posture changes, how your voice steadies, how your presence grows heavier. Powerful people sense outcome independence like sharks sense blood, and they are drawn to it because it is so rare. Socrates Mind Law 11. The eternal student. Remain in aporia. Socrates never claimed to possess final knowledge. He lived in aporia, a state of productive puzzlement, of fruitful doubt. He remained the eternal student, always aware that the more he learned, the more he realized how much he did not know. This humility was not weakness. It was his greatest strength. The moment you believe you have arrived, that you know enough, that you have figured it out, you stop growing. You become rigid, predictable, and eventually obsolete. The eternal student, by contrast, is dangerous because they never stagnate. They continue asking, continue doubting, continue evolving. Powerful people grow bored with those who stop thinking, who become complacent in their knowledge, who defend positions out of ego rather than truth. They are drawn to the person who remains curious, who says, I don't know yet, but let's examine it together, who treats every conversation as an opportunity to learn rather than to prove. Remaining in aporia means embracing uncertainty as a companion rather than an enemy. It means welcoming questions that unsettle you, ideas that contradict you, evidence that challenges you. In a world obsessed with certainty and quick answers, The person who can sit comfortably with doubt becomes magnetic. They become the one others turn to when the easy answers fail, because they have trained themselves not to flinch when reality is uncomfortable. Cultivate this daily and every day by asking, what did I believe today that might be wrong? What assumption did I defend out of pride rather than evidence? The more you practice aporia, the more sovereign you become, because you are no longer controlled by the need to appear right. You're controlled only by the pursuit of what is true. Socrates Mind Law 12. The life worth living. Choose the examined path. Socrates' most famous and final lesson was simple and brutal. The unexamined life is not worth living. He did not say this to be poetic. He said it because he had seen what happens when people refuse to look inward. They become slaves to unexamined fears, unexamined desires, unexamined social scripts. They chase external validation, follow inherited opinions, defend beliefs they never chose. They live as pieces rather than players. To choose the examined path is to reject comfort in favor of clarity, to choose truth over approval, growth over safety. It is difficult. It requires you to face your shadows, your insecurities, your contradictions, your hypocrisies, without flinching. It requires you to question the stories you tell yourself about who you are, what you deserve, why you have, or have not, succeeded. But when you live this way, you radiate something rare, authenticity. People feel it. They trust it. They're drawn to it. An examined life is a sovereign life. You're no longer controlled by unconscious patterns, by the need to be liked, by the fear of being wrong. You become the author of your own story. You decide what matters, what you stand for, what you are willing to lose. In a world full of people who live reactively, reacting to criticism, to trends, to the expectations of others, the person who lives deliberately stands out like a lighthouse in fog. They do not need to shout. Their presence alone raises the standard. Practice this relentlessly. Every evening, examine the day. Ask, what did I do today out of fear? What did I avoid because it was uncomfortable? What belief did I defend without evidence? What did I accept without questioning? The more rigorously you examine, the freer you become. And freedom, true inner freedom, is the foundation of all real power. Socrates Mind Law 13. The philosopher's crown become the question. The ultimate level is not when you ask better questions. It is when you become the question. Your presence alone makes others examine themselves. Your calm certainty forces them to confront their contradictions. Your refusal to accept surface answers quietly raises the standard for everyone around you. At this point, you are no longer networking. You are elevating. People do not connect with you for what you can do for them. They connect with you because being near you makes them better versions of themselves. You become the living embodiment of Socratic inquiry, a walking reminder that truth matters more than comfort, that self-examination is more valuable than self-protection, that the examined life is the only life worth living. When you reach this level, power is no longer something you seek. It is something that accumulates around you naturally. People seek you out because you make them think, because you make them uncomfortable in the best possible way, because you remind them of what they could become if they had the courage to question. These 13 laws are not a checklist to memorize. They're a way of being. Socrates' mind is not about becoming ruthless or manipulative. It is about becoming fully awake in a world that rewards sleepwalking. The world is full of people controlled by unexamined beliefs, chasing external validation, terrified of uncomfortable questions. When you choose to wake up, when you choose relentless self-inquiry, fearless questioning, and radical ownership of your mind, you become dangerous to illusion and irresistible to truth. The real players are not the ones with the most money, the loudest voice, or the biggest title. The real players are the ones who refuse to live unconsciously. They question, they examine, they live deliberately. And in a world full of pieces, they move freely because they hold the only thing that truly matters: the courage to ask and the discipline to live the answers. The choice is yours. Remain comfortable in the herd, accepting the world as it presents itself, or step into the arena of radical self-inquiry. Once you begin asking the hard questions of yourself, of others, of reality itself, there is no going back. You will never again be satisfied with easy answers. You will never again accept mediocrity in yourself or in others. Welcome to the examined life. It is difficult. It is lonely at times. It will cost you illusions, comfort, and the approval of those who prefer sleep to awakening. But it is the only life worth living, because it is the only life that is truly yours.